Okay, so I'll stream the third part. Just let me check whether it's working. Am I live? It should be. Okay. Yes, I'm live. Okay. So we talked about the concept of applied games. We talked about learning and all relationship with contents. Now, something I've learned, I think probably the most useful thing I can tell you about is about how to actually produce the applied games, because by producing several, I learned about several little mistakes that can ruin your process or make it harder or longer. And the most common one is that your customer, who is an expert in his field, which may be medicine, industrial, teaching, whatever, mathematics, science, technology, safety, whatever. The problem is that people tend to confuse the fact that they can play games with the fact that they can design games, which are completely different skills, of course. And so they will come with their great game design ideas, and somehow, so you have to convince them that what you need for them is not their great ideas, which in fact are not great at all, if ever there is an idea that is great by itself. Instead, you should try to shift their focus on the fact that you don't as much need their game design ideas. What you need is their knowledge. Okay, in the knowledge such that you can model in your game, and this is the point. And it's don't take it for granted. So for you, it may be obvious that you need like some kind of atomic knowledge that can be combined, that can be modeled, let's say, in an object-oriented model, relational model somehow, and that you will have rules linking the atoms of these models that make it transform, and metrics, and so on. But all of this is not at all clear to your customer, even if they have a lot of scientific or mathematical training. Domain modeling and scientific training are not the same skill. And what's funny is that I found that often the customers often have this kind of simplified table form, table presentation form of their knowledge, and they just didn't think it would be useful. So either they did some lessons or things like this. So this is gold. This is gold, because of what I told you before, that the depth of your game will be the depth of your domain. So if you're making good applied games, the depth of the domain will be reflected by the depth of your game in all dimensions. So the problem, what I found, that often when you ask them for these atoms, they will give you like 2 or 3 examples of nuggets of knowledge from their domain, which like support like free episodes, which can be combined, let's say, together. So you have like 9 possible sequences, or less, actually 6 possible sequences, and that's a few seconds of gameplay. So you have somehow to make them understand that you need a vast combinatorial space of their domain. And like for example, the safety of offshore platforms is actually a very complex topic. It involves machinery, dressing, rules, knowledge, reactions to dramatic events, and external forces, all this. And it took us a lot of effort to work with the customer and get a table form of all the knowledge that concerns that makes an offshore platform safe or not. And so all this information combined makes it for a very complex game, because of course there are millions ways that things can go wrong in an offshore platform extracting oil or gas, of course, and mostly they don't. So they have the knowledge and the expertise to prevent this from happening. You just have to drag it out from them, and by explaining and working with them. In fact, so this is also a nice thing of applied games. Is like there's like a bit of bi-directional learning process going on. The customer learning what they need from you, and you learning about their domain. Of course, now it looks simple, but sometimes you really have to have. I had experiences, very bad experiences in the beginning, where they wanted to force on me really bad game design ideas, and which they thought were, of course, a product of genius, and of course they were the most trivial and most obvious and uninteresting game ideas. So that's a very delicate point. You somehow have to affirm your authority in the field, and make them turn their focus to expressing their knowledge in appropriate form. Of course, more games, more work you've done, more games you've released and things done, more is likely that they will take you seriously when you're discussing with them. But maybe if you have this clear now, you can be ready for the fight. And yeah, so okay, so in this flow, in this process of creating the applied games, as you will know, as you have anybody who has worked in games for a sufficient, after let's say the first attempt, knows that prototyping and prototype releases is the key factor to understanding your game, and that you should. Now, this probably most people understand this. Now, that the fact that you should force your technical tools in order to reach a working prototype, and forcing and using the most practical, most simple, and using all the possible shortcuts to reach this prototype is likely my philosophy, but I know that not everybody agrees. I don't even see how it's possible to disagree with this, but several developers, particularly not very young developers, hold this ridiculous thesis that you should do your own engine or silly ideas, which to me are just plain silly, or that you should use the simplest tools that won't lead you to any releasing work, or oversimplified tools. So instead, what I can tell you, and this is direct from my experiences, and not only my experiences, take, I don't know, Dan Cook, there's a lot of people can tell you this, is that you should just cheat like a motherfucker, in a sense, and really get something working, running. That's what's most important, not the quality of the code you're writing, not the graphic quality of what you're producing. Of course, you should be aware that what you're doing is just a rough prototype, and somehow something refined of your prototype should be expressed. Otherwise, it's very hard to judge whether your game is good or not. It's not that the notion that mechanic can be isolated from the rest is something I strongly disagree with. Is mechanics and atmosphere are strongly linked. And so if you can get the atmosphere of a game from your prototype, that's the ideal situation, I think. And for example, I saw recently the guy from what was the name, Subnautica game, saying almost the same thing. And of course, errors in games and a culture. In game, we thrive, as we say, in a culture of errors, in the sense that we could do prototypes, we do lots of mistakes, and then release new prototypes and so on. So that's something that anybody who has a minimal of experience will know. You know, I'm actually fixing the slides while I'm talking, because this is not the real talk, this is a test talk. And this is also linked, this idea that the prototype is so important is why nobody's actually using game design documents in the form of a single huge doc that testifies the game, because of course your game changes all the time. I'm not saying that documentation is useless. Actually, on the contrary, like the only commercial game I'm working on, we have tons of documentation, maps, conceptual flows, diagrams, and Excel spreadsheets of all kinds. Yes, you need tons of documentation, but it will help you, but it will change all the time. So this is where I got with revising the slides, but let's go on. So let's talk about management. Now, game production management is very important, and this because this is taken from a recent Daniel Cook, which is, you should follow. He's a really great game designer, and he points out how risky is game development, and it is, because we're talking about really extremely refined technology. Is risky in any dimension, in design, marketing, platform, team, production, financial, and personal. And so this is linked in the slides, and I even has slides left in Italian. So it's risky, and so you should be aware of this. And in applied games, as you're pulled by your customer to doing, because they have no idea what's happening and how. So you should make them aware about the risk. And when they want to say, oh, let's make the game geolocalized, which will actually almost never work. And for example, you should make them aware of the dimension of risk they're adding to something that is already unstable and risky and buggy. So more dimension, more risk, and so one should be extremely conscious and careful about what they're doing. Okay, so I think this part of the slides really need more in-depth revision. Yes, so I don't think I will do this in streaming. So there's a part on contracting and on the wrong requirements. I think the core concept I've already covered, but let's say something about the so-called secrets. And the secrets are, let me see, the secrets are, well, the core secret is this: be ready for change. Be ready for change in your game, in your ideas. So both in the way you write code, both in the way you create prototypes, both in the way you link contents, the field contents, and your game function should be as indirect as possible. So always distinguish about data and function, and so that data can be changed without changing functionality, and vice versa. And whatever you can do, making your application more resistant, less brittle, when things change, better it is. And this is the first secret. The second secret is pairing. So by which I mean the practice of working two people with one keyboard. Okay. This is so important. This is so important. And even if you're working with somebody who knows nothing about code, working with someone on your side somehow will improve your work quality and your concentration and the quality of the results enormously. Just try. Was there a third secret? Well, defensive code is linking. Defensive code is ready for change. No, I don't think I have actually 2 secrets. Okay, so I think that's enough as a test.